as he looks out, he'll see a bunch of Americans. As I look out, I think of how, and Saturday night, I think will prove a reminder of this, how, just because we have the words united in the titles of our two countries is no guarantee that we will remain united within them. And so I am really excited to see Democrats and Republicans and their guests who they invite into that chamber to listen to someone who may get us to think about harmony, as I talked about, in a new way, the power of difference, as long as we're singing the same song.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Hillary, I just want to bring you in on that point because, that is something that we seldom see now in quite a divided America.
True, and it's kind of a reminder for both America and the UK. The irony of the King of England speaking to the US Congress about on the 250th anniversary of America's independence from the UK is quite fascinating. And people look at their history and think back to the time when King George actually sent soldiers to America to stop this from happening. Charles' diplomacy in that speech will be quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Hillary, Matthew, thank you both for joining us here for our special coverage of the King's arrival to the United States. I'm just going to leave you with these images from earlier of the King and Queen Camilla arriving at the White House to meet with US President Donald Trump and the First Lady Melania. And of course, we will be following the coverage over the next few days. Do stay with us on Sky News.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Tonight on The Wrap, the King's Gambit. Charles and Camilla arrive in the United States for a royal visit at the most testing time for transatlantic relations in decades. Can the King mend Britain's broken fences with President Trump? More pressure on the Prime Minister, with MPs to decide if he should be investigated over claims that he misled them. Over Lord Mandelson, he signals to Sky News that he will order Labour MPs to back him in tomorrow's vote.
It is a stunt. We've got huge amounts of transparency going on already. And frankly, as Prime Minister and as a government, it is really important I focus on what matters to millions of people across the country.
Suspected gunman in Saturday's shooting in Washington is charged with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump as questions over the president's security continue. Well, we discussed today's biggest stories with Sarah Vine and Kevin Maguire, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including coverage of the King's US visit and the PM's predicament. Well, hello and a very good evening to you, Sarah. Kevin, welcome to you both as well. So we've just seen the King and Queen at the White House meeting President Trump and the First Lady at the start of a state visit for which the stakes could hardly be higher. So, Sarah, Kevin, celebrating 250 years of America's independence from Britain at a time of schism between these two great allies.
Yes, but I mean, the King hasn't caused the schism. It's Trump who's really caused the schism. And, you know, there's been a lot of debate about whether the King should have gone on this trip in the first place. I think he's done the right thing. I mean, personally, I think this is what the monarchy is for. It's sort of soft power. And I don't know if you've seen any footage of Donald Trump and meeting the King. He looks absolutely pleased as punch. He literally looks like the cat who's got the cream. So I think it'll, you know, he's obviously quite susceptible to a bit of a royal bauble. So yeah, hopefully it'll smooth things over. And
those pictures coming. Stand by.
Yeah, that's 250 years of an independence. Of course, we resisted, and the US had to fight. The colonies, as were, had to fight a war of independence. But look, this is rewarding bad behaviour by a man in the White House who is contemptuous about British armed forces, declared economic war on the UK, and has started a war in Iran. That has given us Trumpflation with rising prices. So there may be a lull in hostilities, but as we saw with the second state visit last September, those hostilities will resume again very quickly.
OK, well, it was certainly straight to work for the King and Queen after their flight. Charles and Camilla arriving at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland just after 7:30 UK time to kick off this visit during what is the lowest point, as we heard there, in transatlantic relations for decades. But it was all smiles. As the, sorry about that, as the royal family, that was the fanfare you wanted, Sarah, I think, wasn't it? As the royal couple arrived at the White House in the last hour to be greeted by President Trump and the First Lady, they all then went inside to take tea and look at bees as well. Yes, we understand the King and Queen were treated to a tour of the White House beehives installed by Melania on the South Lawn. Of course, this visit comes at a time when the President has made clear his displeasure with Sir Keir Starmer, as you said. Sarah, smiles there, though, over the UK's reticence to join the war with Iran, the UK's immigration policies and the British government's apparent reluctance to expand North Sea oil drilling. But he's been clear that he does not blame the King, who he describes as a good friend. So let's talk more. Our royal correspondent... It's off on one today, isn't it? Our royal correspondent Laura Bundock is at the UK ambassador's residence, due to host a garden party, of course. And our US correspondent David Blevins is also in Washington to tell us how important this state visit is for both sides. Well, to you first, Laura, it is easy to focus on the troubled backdrop to all of this, isn't it? But what are the upsides? What will the King be trying to do?
Well, I think his team will be hoping the next 4 days in the US go as planned, without any unplanned or embarrassing outbursts from Donald Trump. Look, today has felt very much like a low-key start to this state visit, with the welcome at the airport, tea at the White House, the beehives, and later coming here to the British ambassador's residence for his garden tea party with some 600 guests. That's the easy day. Tomorrow, I think, is the bigger, much harder day. You've got this huge formal welcoming ceremony. You've then got the meeting between the President and the King. And then the King will deliver his address to both houses of Congress. And this will be such a carefully worded speech. It's coming at such a difficult time between the US and the UK relations. I think the government will be hoping by combining a king with a president who loves the British family, it will help repair some of those very difficult recent relations. We've heard a little bit about what the king will be talking about tomorrow. He will say how we are living in times of challenge, but that we still have our shared values. He will say that he brings the friendship of the UK to the US and say that while we haven't always agreed, we have always found ways to come together. He says that will say that the story of both the UK and the US is one of reconciliation and renewal that has led to, the King will say, one of the greatest alliances in human history. So pretty punchy words there, and I think definitely words written and designed to diplomatically flatter Donald Trump.
Very interesting. Laura, thank you. Well, let's go to David. Security meetings through the night, we're told, David, after what happened on Saturday. But again, to you, what does Donald Trump get out of this? An avowed royal supporter, a moment of real pride for him.
Well, in many ways, if there was an episode of The Crown crying out to be made, it is the one where royal protocol meets the political firebrand. That is Donald Trump. And it is easier, I suppose, to articulate British objectives because it's not the job of the monarch to rebuild the bridge. But they will be hoping, of course, by exercising what's often described as soft power, the king will be able to persuade the current president of the United States to stop demolishing that relationship. There is already a personal relationship between the two men. Donald Trump says he likes King Charles. He respects him. He's even gone so far as to suggest the king would have deployed UK forces in support of their American allies in their war with Iran if it was up to him and not up to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Very far from reality, of course. But in terms of what Donald Trump wants out of this, well, think about what King Charles brings with him. All of the pageantry, pomp and circumstance that Trump relishes. It gives him a sense of occasion, a sense of standing in the world, and he is flattered by it, to put it quite frankly. So when you also reflect on how often he talks about America being first, being best, being biggest, you can absolutely expect him to roll out the red carpet over the next 4 days, but he'll be doing so against that tricky backdrop. Security heightened, security having been stepped up around the President and First Lady and around the King and Queen after that attempted assassination of Donald Trump at the Washington Hilton Hotel last Saturday night.
Yes, we'll keep an eye on all those events with the red carpet in tow. David, thanks very much indeed. Quick word from Laura. They're still at the White House, we understand, but we are expecting them to arrive near you with, what, 3 types of cake on offer, scones, individual sandwiches. Who's going?
OK, well, some 600 guests have been invited, Brits, Americans, all with vested interests in both countries from all walks of life. So we've got the arts, we've got the sciences, business interests all represented here. I'm told that some of the food they're eating has been grown in the ambassador's garden. I don't know, we've not seen the menu, but it will all be a celebration, I imagine, of the links that join our two countries, of this shared history. And you'll hear a lot about the shared history, the fact that, you know, the current presidency, current political situations are transcended by the 250 years since that signing of independence that really links the two countries, and it is that shared history they will want to be focusing on. But let's be honest, that history at the moment is not feeling particularly friendly, is it?
Indeed not. Laura, thank you very much indeed. Back to you a bit later on, no doubt. David, good to speak to you as well. It's been a very busy 48 hours, I know, for everyone in Washington. Well, let's talk more then, shall we? Certainly the head chef of the embassy suggested 2,500 individual sandwiches are being made, 250 of each cake. I know you're fascinated, Kevin.
That's 4 each.
A toy sandwich. That's probably
very
enough.
small, yeah.
A toy sandwich, which I'm guessing is like a Victoria sandwich, but it wasn't clear. A Bakewell tart and
tiny ones that you get, isn't it? The little ones with no crust. Do you think they've got Marmite?
No.
Pickles and cheese on sticks.
I don't know.
But the point is, it's in this beautiful residence of, the ambassador's home, effectively. You know, they describe the garden as if a little bit of England. It's just the sort of thing that some of the Americans want to.
Well, I mean,
have,
the garden part, the royal garden party is quintessential royal pastime, isn't it? And the Queen used to have loads of them. So maybe they've just decided to try and replicate one of those in America, which is quite sweet, really. I mean, but I noticed that when they turned to walk into the we're talking about protocol here and the fact that Donald Trump is supposed to be obsessed with royalty.
Did he go first?
He just walked in ahead of the Queen, which is not really what you're supposed to do. I mean, and there was no bowing, was there, or curtsying? There was none of that. So it's all very sort of on their terms, I think.
Yeah, they let him do it. They did that in September when Trump came here. They just thought, let's not have a rant about it and say, you're supposed to pay.
There was that time that he sort of almost embraced the Queen, wasn't there? Which everyone.
There's no doubt that the 600 or so guests will be impressed. But if you come back to the core mission, which is somehow to soften Trump, I think that'll just fail because he's so disorderly and such a loose cannon. He will just revert to type when they're on the BA flight home.
If we heard the words that Laura was saying and what he will say tomorrow, the shared values, one of the greatest alliances of
Sounds
all
really
time.
needy, yeah.
But it doesn't sound needy.
It does sound, it sounds needy from the UK.
It is a great reminder of where that nation came from. You mentioned the 13 colonies, which eventually forged to separate.
I know that you're not a royalist, and I completely understand that. But this is what the royal family is for. This is what they do best. I mean, it may or may not succeed. You're perfectly right. I mean, Trump is a loose cannon. We don't know whether it'll make any difference or not, or whether he might just be happy for a couple of days and then revert to type. But it's just, this is what the royal family does. This is what they do really well. The king is absolutely adept at all this kind of stuff.
But in this case, it's mythical, not magical powers, because we've seen Trump had the red carpet rolled out last September.
What do you mean by that?
Because Trump is Trump, and he's not going to change, so he's going to continue his attacks. If he finds out the views of Charles on the environment, he's going to go spare. I mean, as he wants to drill baby...
Part of the visit to America...
One of the great environmentalists of our time.
In celebration of the King's sustainability over the last, more than 4 decades.
Going to change Trump's mind. Trump's not going to change his mind.
There's this question about whether or not they're going to... There's the sort of Epstein axis as well, isn't there? And there's this question about whether they're going to meet some of the victims.
Well, they are not.
They're not at the moment, is that right?
And Buckingham Palace points out that there's due process underway, as we know, with regard to the King's brother and Lord Mandelson, and therefore you should not interfere. I mean, I know Virginia Giuffre's family is disappointed in that called it a missed opportunity.
And also, the Queen is very, this is her special sort of area. She's very interested in this kind of thing. So, I think naturally she would have wanted to, but perhaps you're right. It's just not the protocol.
It's because he doesn't want it. It's not really the law, is it? He doesn't want to be the long shadow of his brother, who's given a safe house in Norfolk, casting all the way across the Atlantic into his trip. Because he will have questions to answer about why they bailed Andrew out with £12 million to keep a case out of court, and why he's now putting them up in some luxury.
I don't think they're going to be discussing that.
No, that's right, but that's why he doesn't meet them. Or she doesn't.
Well, we will obviously go back to the pictures of the White House when they depart on their way to the residence. I just want to see the beehive that apparently looks like the White House. Maybe, I'm not sure we'll get those pictures either, but, plenty more on this to come. And there's the eye leading on this. King's warning to America. Charles urges the US President and Congress to stick with Europe. So more of the words there that we are expecting to hear from the King on Tuesday. Awaiting, as I said, his departure. We'll bring that to you when we get it. And we will also be talking about the court appearance of the man accused of trying to attack President Trump in a moment. First of all, let's go to this, discuss the Prime Minister. If he'd been hoping that he'd survived the worst of the Mandelson affair, he might be thinking again tonight. The Commons Speaker has agreed to a Tory request for a vote tomorrow on whether the PM should face an inquiry by the Privileges Committee into claims that he misled Parliament. Well, Sky's Cathy Newman has been speaking to Sir Keir Starmer as she launched her new show this evening and began by asking him if he would order Labour MPs to back him tomorrow.
You're so confident that your conduct is so very different to Boris Johnson. Why not just let the Privileges Committee investigate and you know you'll be proven right? Why are you whipping your MPs to vote against this call for an investigation?
Well, because it's a stunt.
You are whipping your MPs against it.
But it is a stunt. We've got huge amounts of transparency going on already. And frankly, as Prime Minister and as a government, it is really important I focus on what matters to millions of people across the country. I know what they're feeling. They're feeling worried about what's happening in the Middle East. They don't like to see the damage that has already been caused. And deep down, I think, in their stomach, they feel this could impact me. My bills might go up, and they're looking to me and the government to say, what are you doing to manage that and make sure that the impact on our country is limited?
Well, let's talk about the bigger picture, US-UK relations and Iran, as you've rightly brought up. I mean, you appointed Lord Mandelson to charm Donald Trump, and now obviously the King this week has got to play nice with him. Let's just look at some of the things that Trump has said just in the last 6 weeks alone. He's repeatedly slagged you off. He's dismissed UK aircraft carriers as toys. He's threatened new tariffs. He's questioned Britain's sovereignty over the Falklands Islands. Is it time to stop pretending this man is an ally?
I think it's important, just as you went through that list, to remind ourselves what that's all about. I took a very clear decision at the outbreak of the conflict in Iran that the UK would not be dragged into the conflict.
So you're chairing this crisis cabinet committee tomorrow. I wondered if you could just level with the British public. You know, are you worried about fuel and food shortages? Is that why you're chairing that committee?
There is going to be an impact on the UK. There already is. And I think it's really important I level with the public that we are doing everything we can to get the Strait of Hormuz open, because obviously that is vital in terms of minimising the impact. But I don't want anybody to think that once the strait is open, that that's the end of the damage. It'll go on longer than that. And that's why we've got almost daily meetings of ministers and officials looking at how we manage the impact. At the moment, we're confident about supply. We have reopened a CO2 plant in the northeast. Airlines are telling us that they've got enough jet fuel at the moment.
But when you say at the moment, for how long?
Well, we monitor this all of the time, and they have told us so far that they've got the supplies that they need.
But summer holidays could be in jeopardy.
Well, that's why we manage it. I think what we'll see how long the conflict goes on. I can see that if there's more impact, people might change their habits, where they go on holiday this year, what they're buying in the supermarket, that sort of thing.
So you are, I mean, really your message to the public is don't panic, but actually there may be some shortages of food and fuel.
Don't panic, but we chose not to get involved in this war. That was the right thing to do, but we must protect the British people from the impact of it.
Sir Keir Starmer there talking to Cathy. Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, has joined us now. Right, talk us through what's going to happen tomorrow then, John.
9 a.m, Sir Philip Barton. Now, he was the former chief Mandarin in the Foreign Office before Ollie Robbins. Now, he's interesting because we now know, was strongly opposed to the Mandelson appointment. And tonight, there is some written evidence to that committee, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, a man called Ian Collard, the Foreign Office's security chief. He has tonight backed Ollie Robbins' claim about pressure from number 10. Pressure to deliver a rapid outcome, he said. So then we've got 11 o'clock, we've got Morgan McSweeney. He of the expletive, it's claimed, saying just approve it. He denies that. Also, what will he get asked about that mobile phone, which he claims
Which mobile phone, John?
You know, the one that he said was stolen by a cyclist in October. A story which the Conservatives say is fishy and beggars belief. Then, to complete the double whammy, if you like, the committee, then we move to the Commons chamber and the motion you've been describing. Kemi Badenoch will move an emergency motion referring the PM to the Privileges Committee. Now, why this is interesting is because this is the committee that did for Boris Johnson back in 2022. It produced a damning report, which I just happen to have here, 104 pages. Boris Johnson was furious, claimed it was a kangaroo court. But to be honest, it's not. Labour will win the vote quite comfortably, big majority. They put a 3-line whip on, and any MPs that don't vote for it will be in trouble with the chief whip. Now, tonight, the PM has come out fighting, not just in that interview where he looks quite... They love doing interviews in Downing Street, don't they, Prime Ministers? Makes them look prime ministerial. But he went to the Parliamentary Labour Party after that, 4th appearance this year. And he was accusing the Tories of politics. He said, tomorrow's pure politics. We need to stand together against it. A political stunt by our opponents who want to bring us down. Well, that's true, obviously. He will win the vote. He'll win the vote. But, of course, he's not out of trouble then, is he? Because, of course, most Labour MPs, even if they want to get rid of Starmer, they think, oh, my goodness, we're not going to do it 9 days before vital elections. And also, supporters of Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, they're not ready to move. And so he lives to fight another day. They fight those elections. But after that, he could be in real trouble. But I thought I was at the PLP tonight, and I thought he was a bit... I remember the one on the day...
What is that, John? What does that
Parliamentary Labour Party.
No, I know that bit. But what you said, he was a bit...
Well, he was a bit less... I was going to say, when you remember the day that Anas Sarwar called for him to go? Yeah. He went to the PLP that night. God, he had a face like thunder, was furious, didn't speak to any of us lot in the corridor. Whereas tonight it was good evening, and afterwards he said he got a good reception, all that sort of stuff. So... I think they realise that they're not going to lose this vote, but of course he's just buying a bit more time, and of course the vultures, if you like, are circling. A double whammy, I've called it tomorrow. Yeah. Committee, House of Commons.
OK, yes, and to Cathy Newman, he said it is a stunt, as you said. We've got a huge amount of transparency going on already, which is true. We've got hundreds, thousands more documents still to come, haven't we, on the Mandelson appointment in this humble address.
But he can't... I love the fact that he's complaining about it being politics. What else is it going to be? It is politics. Yeah. This is what politics is. Yeah. You know, the job of the opposition is to hold the government to account, and that's what, if you ask Kemi Badenoch, that's what she would say she's doing. You know, it doesn't... In a way, I mean, as you said, of course he's not going to lose because he has a majority and he'll whip it, but it's the principle of the thing, you know, the fact that he is being, you know, held.
And Badenoch's doing to him now what he did to Boris Johnson back in 2022.
Yeah, which Cathy put to him as well, certainly. What about the timing of this just before the local elections? And, you know, what about the future? Do you think actually, no, and also, what about Morgan McSweeney? Because we all want to hear from him, don't we?
Oh, we do, including on the phone. And why didn't you tell the police who you were and correct them when they thought you were somewhere else in London? I mean, I find all that interesting, should we say. But no, he lives to fight another day, but the herd will at some point move. Boris Johnson, when he left Downing Street, said the herd moved. When the herd moves, you're out. The Labour herd hasn't moved yet, but it will move at some point, I'm sure. And if you lose 1,500 or 2,000 councillors, then the herd is going to move because they're real seats and they're real people. But nobody seems to have a plan to get him out.
I suppose
they all think he has to go, but no one has a plan.
Well, it's much harder to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister than it is to get rid of a Tory Prime Minister, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you don't have the 22 committee.
Yeah, the Tories are carnivores and Labour have traditionally been herbivores.
And of course, the PLP had votes to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. I can't remember, it was once or twice, but of course he stayed, didn't he?
Yeah.
He just ignored it.
The question is, does he go before the Labour conference, or does he go at the Labour conference, or does he go before the summer? At which point, then the pretenders will have time to get
20p's on around September, October.
Yeah. OK, interesting stuff. And reiterating once again, don't panic in terms of the economic impact of Iran, in terms of jet fuel, your summer holidays, etc. So we've got enough for now, is what he had to say on that. But we'll discuss
and he's kind of right. But the problem for Labour is they can't get their message out if there is a Prime Minister that, fairly or unfairly, so much of the electorate, the population, the public, have decided they don't like and they think he's a dud. That is the fundamental problem for Labour. And for Keir Starmer.
Yeah, we'll no doubt talk more about that in the papers. Let's go back to Washington, though, for now, where the man suspected of trying to storm the White House Correspondents' Dinner with guns and knives on Saturday night has been charged with attempting to assassinate Donald Trump. But questions remain about Cole Allen's alleged actions and how security at the event came to be tested. The acting US Attorney General Todd Blanche said the incident was being fully investigated and insisted that law enforcement had not failed.
I want to make this clear. This man was a floor above the ballroom with hundreds of federal agents between him and the President of the United States. The Department of Justice approaches incidents like this with urgency and clarity of purpose. Violence has no place in civic life. It cannot and will not be used to disrupt democratic institutions or intimidate those who serve them, and it certainly cannot continue to be used against the President of the United States.
Well, let us bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews, who was both at the dinner on Saturday night and in court today. As I said to your colleague earlier, it's been a busy 48 hours. What did you learn in court then, James?
Yeah, life comes at you fast in this town, Anna. Well, we saw him, Cole Thomas Allen, for the first time since those images from Saturday night, the grainy video, that still picture of him on the floor on his chest, handcuffed. He walked into court, a very tall man. He was surrounded by marshals. He's well over 6 foot, in a blue prison jumpsuit, short-sleeved. Sat down, he was slouched, quite attentive, looked tired to me. You know, he's got a goatee beard, short hair. Not smiling. We saw the mugshot. He had a smile on his face. Not here. He looked around the packed public benches. Didn't fix anyone with his stare necessarily, but paid attention, was very polite to the judge. It was all yes, Your Honour, no, Your Honour, yes, sir, no, sir. We learned that he had not been speaking to investigators so far. He was sticking to that right to remain silent. In terms of the charges, there are 3 of them, the principal one being what we learned today, count 1, an attempt to assassinate the President of the United States. He was told by the judge the maximum sentence would be, or could be, life plus $250,000 fine. He acknowledged that with a brief nod of his head. We learned details of the weapons said to have been involved, a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, 38 caliber semi-automatic pistol, 3 knives, and what was described as dangerous paraphernalia. So, you know, this was an arraignment hearing, Anna. There was no plea today. That will be for another court proceeding. But the evidence in this case clearly is still being built from those weapons, from a search of his house, and also from this document that he is said to have written, something like 1,000 words, where he spoke about targeting the Trump administration, prioritising them, in his words, from the highest ranking to the lowest.
James, thank you very much indeed. Hope you'll have a quiet night. Oh no, the King and Queen are in town. You won't. There we are. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, fascinating actually what we heard from Todd Blanche is, you know, who actually fired the weapon that you can clearly hear in the video. They say at this stage, and they're still looking to get it right, he said, we know there were five shots that law enforcement fired, and they believe that the defendant, as he is now, fired 1 out of his shotgun. So we don't know who fired those shots that you can hear in the video where the president and the cabinet were bundled out. But you know, still lots to learn about this, I think.
Yeah, well, if law enforcement fired 5 shots and he wasn't hit, you know, not a very good shot there. But it's the third.
I think they hit one of their own, actually, didn't they?
It's the third.
Yeah.
It's the third assassination attempt on Trump. The US has lost 4 presidents, from Abraham Lincoln to John F. Kennedy. And it's a very armed, violent, divided society.
Well, it's 'cause they all have guns.
Trump himself is incredibly combative and aggressive, and feeds into that. But political violence is horrific and wrong. absolutely wrong. But nevertheless, America seems to be gripped by it, which is a
Well, there are more guns
challenge.
in America than there are people, and children and women and cats and dogs. I mean, the place is full of guns, and Trump is a huge supporter of the right to carry arms, and that's where a lot of his money comes from, I think. And so, you know, what do you expect if you have it only takes one sort of nutter, doesn't it, really? And he had a gun, and you could have done a lot more damage.
Yeah, we are told that the King and Queen are looking at the beehives right now.
I'm sitting up straight for that
You're
moment.
Saying, oh, good, are you? Good, you're on attention. Clearly, a reassessment of security happened. We're told there were discussions through the night between UK and US security. They are in there. They will be leaving soon. We'll take you there live and take a look at the front pages after this.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, we did not see them depart the White House, but I am now told the King and Queen are arriving at the UK ambassador's residence for this garden party with the invited great and good in this beautiful building, designed, I read, by Sir Edward Lutyens in 1928. It looks older, in fact, but there we are. Waiting to see if we get pictures of the arrival or indeed any inside as well, although our correspondent Mark Stone did get a sneak peek and there's some beautiful elements to it after its £118 million makeover. But there we are. Now it is time to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. And the King and Queen's trip to the White House is on the front of The Sun. Their headline, United Kingdom. The Eye says King Charles will put fixing the special relationship at the forefront of his visit to the States. The Star labels His Majesty as the King of Steel as the US Secret Service steps up security following the dramatic shooting over the weekend. Back at home, The Guardian focusing on the Prime Minister's call for unity ahead of a critical vote on his handling of the Peter Mandelson vetting in the Commons. The Daily Mail says he will attempt to save his own skin by ordering his backbenchers to vote against the ethics inquiry. The Telegraph features Sir Keir Starmer labelling the vote as a political stunt. Leading the front page of the Financial Times is the Chinese government blocking Meta's multi-billion-dollar, presumably, acquisition of AI software Manus. The Metro reports on the Iranian embassy in the UK, which the paper claims has released a chilling message calling for Iranians to become martyrs. So let us take a look, first of all, shall we, at the picture story of the night, which is the smiles of Donald Trump, Sarah, with the King and Queen arriving at the White House.
Yes, he looks very pleased, doesn't he? He's very happy. He's got his bauble. I felt a bit sorry, though, for Charles and Camilla because they had to fly British Airways, which is dreadful at the moment. I don't know if you've flown recently. I had the worst flight ever. But I suppose they couldn't really go EasyJet, could they? I mean, anyway.
Focus.
Sorry, yes, I am focused. It's great. I mean, they're there, they all look very happy, they're doing their jobs, they're going to have some nice sandwiches, look at some bees. That's what you do, isn't it, when you're the king?
But that is the picture, though, the four of them together. Some of the early editions, The Eye and The Guardian, have them coming off the plane along the red carpet on their own. But that is the picture. And I do like United King Don in the Sun. I also like the Mirror Peace Envoy, which is the role of Charles here. Whether it works or not, I've grave doubts whether it lasts more than 4 days. But I can't wait to see them with the White House-shaped beehive. I mean, they are visiting Mr. and Mrs. Taggy.
Yes. Yeah. But they are going to have their meeting behind closed doors, though, aren't they? Because they don't want a repeat of the Zelensky disaster, which, I mean, because, as you say, Trump can suddenly go off-piste.
Yes, the Guardian says that King Charles will be spared the potential humiliation of being upbraided in public by Donald Trump, as you say, because any meetings between them will be
I mean, you can imagine Trump
private.
saying, I'm sorry you've got such a terrible Prime Minister, he's such this, that and the other.
Yeah, what do you think, King?
Yes, exactly. You really don't want any of that sort of stuff happening.
In fact, Charles and Keir Starmer get on very well.
Yeah.
They have a lot in common in views of the world.
Well, he will, of course, have some really important meetings tomorrow, and he will make reference in the joint meeting of Congress, which will be happening. The first time that happened was the Queen Elizabeth II in 1991. He will reference what happened on Saturday night, mentioning the highest regard and friendship of the British people to the people of the United States in this landmark anniversary year. 250 years after independence from Britain. He'll reflect on shared values, democratic, legal and social traditions. Time and again, our two countries have always found ways to come together. So that's the overriding message that he wants to say. The Eye, King's warning to America. Charles urges the US President and Congress to stick with Europe. So this message of friendship.
Yes, I wonder if they'll discuss the Falklands. Do you think they will? In private? Because, Trump has said that, it was the leaked memo. It was a leaked Pentagon email in which the suggestion was that they wouldn't support Britain over the Falklands.
I think the king has no authority to do that. I think it's all mood music and rather being nice. And I suppose he wants to show that Britain's not bad losers when was it George III, one of his relatives who lost the Americas.
Yes. Hamilton, the musical.
I mean, that's Yeah, I think I read a book, actually, rather than getting it from that. But nevertheless, I went to a few lectures. But 1776 to 83, the War of Independence.
In the 1770s, America had a population of 2.5 million and 1,000 miles of coastline.
Yeah.
That's my fact to contribute
That's
to
a
this.
very good fact.
Pretty impressive.
That's a very good fact.
I'm sure Chaz has lots of nuggets to, the conversations, going a bit quiet.
The Eye tells us insiders expect an extra amount of warmth from the king, but he won't be afraid to voice his opinions in private. So we'll see.
So maybe he will talk about the fact.
Maybe he will. Maybe we will never know.
We'll never know.
Is the point, I suppose. Shall we move on to the Daily Mail? It has the picture that I know you love on the top. Welcome to the USA, Your Majesty. But the main story is Starmer's stitch-up to save his own king. Sarah?
Yes. Well, I mean, the Mail has been very front-footed on all of this. We've been going very hard, understandably so. I mean, as we said earlier, he's obviously he's going to win it because he's going to whip it. But it's a principle. It's a matter of principle, really, isn't it? And of course,
this is whether the Ethics Committee looks into the correct
Privileges Committee,
the Privileges Committee.
But everyone's going to be voting on party lines. The Conservatives are going to be voting on party lines. This is where it is.
But I mean, I think
politics.
Starmer bleating about it being political is silly because, of course, it's political.
It's the timing.
But
everything is political, and yes, but also this is
It's good politics by the Conservatives.
The timing hasn't been forced by the Conservatives. This stuff came out when it came out, so they didn't.
Yes, but they pushed for the privileged vote, which Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the Commons, who's hostile to Starmer because Starmer's hostile to him.
Well, they had a massive row, didn't they? There was a row last week, actually, behind the Speaker's chair.
Lindsay Hoyle has been driven to huge frustration by statements being made outside of the chamber. He's trying to get the Prime Minister and ministers to make these statements in the Commons. And that may or may not have coloured his decision to grant this request from Kemi Badenoch. But I think the real issue, and I think Emily Thornberry, who's the Labour chair of the All-Party Foreign Affairs Committee, which is causing a lot of problems for the Prime Minister, and tomorrow we'll have Morgan McSweeney and others, she said, look, why are they moving this vote now while we've still got our own inquiry? I think they may have been premature in that way. Instead of waiting for all other facts to come out. But I think in the end, it's not about whether the Prime Minister lied. It's about his terrible judgment in appointing Peter Mandelson in the first place.
Yes,
and I also think this is a fight between the civil service and the Prime Minister. The civil service are pushing back quite hard. I mean, Ollie Robbins did not mince his words, and as we said earlier, we've had more interventions from that side. They're not happy. They don't want to just take the blame for this, and they're not going to just let him get away with it.
Well, he's sacked enough of them.
But I mean,
he's on his third cabinet secretary, and he. Somebody has to go. Well, right, it's you at the Foreign Office.
But there is a sense now that he never takes responsibility for his mistakes, and he just expects other people to lose their jobs and their careers.
Catches up with you.
And apart from anything else, it's just a shoddy way to behave, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, the person, the more that you mentioned is Ian Collard, the Foreign Office official. He's the one who actually briefed Sir Ollie Robbins on the vetting findings, suggested that he had felt pressure to deliver a rapid outcome to Lord Mandelson's vetting clearance. It was a letter from the Foreign Office drafted in consultation with Ian Collard. So no doubt we'll hear more about that in questions put to Philip Barton and Morgan McSweeney tomorrow.
Yeah, the Prime Minister's wriggle room after he said no pressure whatsoever was applied is no...
No pressure existed whatsoever in relation to this case, is what he said.
And how you make what the decision was going to be, rather than making the decision itself.
Yeah. Quickly to The Guardian, your, whip it to win it is translated as the PM pleading for unity and the speaking to the Parliamentary Labour Party.
But I mean, there's another story on the front page of The Guardian which I think is fascinating, which is this Reeves, the idea that she's going to freeze rents because they're so worried.
That was going to come later, but let's do it now.
Sorry.
Go on. Which we've seen in Scotland, haven't we, I suppose? But Rachel Reeves is considering imposing a one-year rent freeze on private sector homes in the coming weeks amid growing alarm in the government about the impact of the Iran war on voters' budgets. That's all very well, but they're also bringing in changes to landlords this week.
They brought in the Renters' Rights Act.
People are selling up and also evicting people ahead of when they can't evict them.
I've been served what is it called, a Section 6.
Have you got to move home?
Yes, I have, yeah. Because, my landlord is, because of these new rules. Lots of landlords, I think think it's something like, the law was given, the royal assent about 6 months ago, and since then, I think about 12% of people who rent have been served notice.
Landlords will still be,
there'll be some
able
people.
to sell a house. They just have to give you four months' notice to get out, which I think is not.
But there's no
actually.
long-term contracts, as I understand it now, which means you've got a rolling rent,
Yes,
which
they're
means
rolling
you
contracts.
can't plan to have someone in your property for some time, and therefore when they ask you for something, you might not say yes.
I think whose side are you on, the landlord or the tenant? I mean, there are far more tenants, and a lot of them are exploited. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A good
and a lot of tenants are bad tenants as well.
A good landlord should have nothing to fear from having to have a reason to evict somebody. And if you want to sell their house, given 4 months' notice, and to say,
But the point is, with many of these policies, it has a reaction, and that has not necessarily been factored in.
Consequences, I think.
But anyway, I think the rise of the private renter sector isn't good for Britain or tenants.
Would you want council housing everywhere?
I would rather.
That's unpicking history.
No, it's progressing forward. I would have a huge social housing building programme rather than giving housing benefits in tens of billions of pounds as a subsidy to private landlords. Yes, I would.
You don't think that ship sailed under Margaret Thatcher?
I'd put it into bricks and mortar rather than subsidies to private landlords, yes.
And one of the difficulties is that, of course, it's becoming hard. It's very hard for people to buy. So you've got a lot more people who have to rent because they can't really afford. They can't get the mortgages.
Well, all these landlords are selling up. There'll be more houses on the market.
Well, I think that's the theory, and I suspect that's partly what's behind this. Is that Labour were just.
I'm going to jump to the Telegraph, which is the impact of the rising economic picture we have, inflation and so on, which is the rate that pubs and restaurants are closing. The paper says down the bottom here, Britain is losing 3 pubs and restaurants every day as the Iran war forces costs even higher. More than 350 hospitality sites closed in the first 3 months of the year.
But that's also partly to do with the government's absolute pressure that they're putting on businesses. You know, these new rules about how you employ people, the business rates, which are very, very high, and they just can't make their
Employers' national insurance.
Employers' national insurance. I mean, this is not just because of Iran. I mean, Iran's a convenient excuse, but there are really serious underlying endemic issues that this government has created through its own policies.
Very quickly.
I would like to see the figures for this time last year and the year before, because I read so many of these stories, including one in the papers, and it had fallen the last time I read a story like this. Compared to the previous law, it was just presented as another disaster.
Do you accept what Sarah said, though, that this government has made it more expensive for businesses, specifically hospitality, where the pay is often quite low, to actually function?
Yeah, and of course, the NI increase you've seen in the revival of the NHS, and I do think people on a minimum wage deserve a decent wage, rather than being cheap labour. OK, well, coming up, take a look at this. Is Birmingham's long-running bin strike really about to come to an end? This is what the people of Birmingham have been facing. We'll talk more about that.
With respect, Minister, answer the question. It's you.
Hello and welcome, I'm Cathy Newman. So could the outcome of these elections be manipulated? New me, new show, new furniture. Hard news needs a hard chair. I feel like I'm in therapy. Oh, there's room for 2 on this one. Do you think people will take me seriously with my feet up?
Sorry, madam, but we're closing now.
Oh, sorry. Sofa sorted, let's get this show on the road.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear-gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Omdurman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started.
and this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people.
This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here.
My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagir, Sky News.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back.
Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to warn.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist...
My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off and make a statement.
What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs?
He's coming out! What more do you need?
Now, after more than a year, could Birmingham's bin strike be about to end? The leader of Birmingham City Council said this afternoon that a deal with the Unite Union is within sight to end the long-running dispute over jobs and pay, which has seen rubbish piled up on the city streets. Well, Birmingham Council has been majority Labour-controlled since 2012. But a new exclusive YouGov MRP projection for Sky News raises the question of for how much longer. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, has the data.
I've got another eye-popping poll that I want to show you. It's another Labour heartland. Labour, majority controlled for 14 years. But now, the YouGov MRP polling projection puts Labour and Reform neck and neck, both on 21%, and the Greens just behind on 19%, the Tories on 13%, and the Liberal Democrats on 12%. But here's the thing I think MPs are going to be paying attention to. Look at this. It's the change in the vote. See this massive drop by Labour? They were 30 percentage points higher at the last elections. Tories down 14, Liberal Democrats down 3, probably the same. Big rise in Greens around Birmingham, and here are the biggest winners of all, Reform UK. This poll actually looks more broadly across the West Midlands. Birmingham only red because it's a fraction of a point ahead of Reform UK. Everywhere else here in Reform UK, light blue. 4 of those councils, they're projected to get over 40% of the vote. This is Patrick. He ran the poll for YouGov.
What we're seeing is these old Leave-Remain divides occurring again across the West Midlands. In areas which voted more to leave in 2016, Reform UK are coming crashing through, largely at the expense of Labour. In the more urban areas, those which voted a bit more to remain in that referendum, Labour do still look competitive. The Greens are coming through as well, Reform not advancing so much, and a lot of those contests are very tight indeed.
Why does the Birmingham result matter in Westminster? Well, so many Birmingham MPs are Labour, including the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood and Jess Phillips. Our poll raises the question, where can Labour win?
Yeah, I mean, it's all fascinating. This is, again, heartland stuff for Labour, though, isn't it? I mean, you know, bin dispute, etc. But, you know, which bit do you want to start with? The bins or the
if you look at that
projections?
Dispute, it should never have gone on for a year. Unite the Union points out commissioners are running Birmingham as well as the council in place. The government appointed, twice could have had this deal, didn't get it. But it's cost the union about £5 to £6 million, I would have thought, calculating, or given £70.
What's the nuts and bolts of it?
The nuts and bolts are kind of supervisors were going to lose their jobs on the bin lorries who supervise the route. That's about worth £8,000 a year. And if you're a refuse worker, you look for promotion when you're, career progression in one of those roles. Those roles were going because the council said under an equal pay claim, if they didn't go, they'd have to give a lot of other workers pay rises doing jobs of equal value. But it's been a complete mess, this, literally. And if your bins aren't collected properly for a year, you're going to blame the local authority that is supposed to be providing the service. Around the country, whenever there's a bin dispute, there's an electoral knock for whoever's in charge of that council.
Yeah. I mean, and also the rats and the stench and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I personally think bin men should be paid a lot more than they're probably already paid.
And women.
And bin ladies.
Sorry, just mansplaining.
Thank you for that. But I think one of the problems for Labour is that everyone associates Unite with Labour. There's sort of one and the same in most people's minds. So that's probably what's
I'll have a word with Sharon Graham, the General Secretary. They didn't endorse the Labour manifesto at the last election.
No, I know, but, the idea that Labour and the unions are hand in hand is still, I mean, I think that's...
The council hasn't...
It just makes election night ever more fascinating, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So stay tuned, special programme, lots of coverage the next day as well. We'll get a lot of the results too on that Friday. Let's take a look at the weather now, shall we?
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, the week ahead will bring more sunny spells, but it will feel chilly and a brisk wind coming in from the North Sea. It is a cloudy and breezy start then for many, with outbreaks of drizzly rain for southern parts of Britain on Tuesday morning. Skies will be clearer for much of Ireland and western Scotland, with some patches of fog. Despite the grey and damp start, the overnight cloud and fog patches will slowly lift to brighter spells, but it will feel much cooler compared to recent days, especially in the brisk winds across southern parts of England and Wales. By the afternoon, most places will be dry and sunny. It will remain cloudier along some English Channel coastal areas, with the brisk northeasterly winds feeding in occasional showers. Wednesday will be largely dry with warm sunny spells once any overnight cloud retreats back to the cooler North Sea coasts. Still breezy in the south with a few showers towards the far southwest. There's more sunshine to come on Thursday. Again, it will be cooler in the east.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, lots to talk about in the next hour. The King and Queen kicking off their state visit to the US. They're currently in their garden party. But will their soft power be enough to fix the cracks in the special relationship? Back with plenty more from Sarah and Kevin in a moment.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighbourhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan. I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming. It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Tonight on The Wrap, the King's Gambit. Charles and Camilla arrive in the United States for a royal visit at the most testing time for transatlantic relations in decades. Can the King mend Britain's broken fences with President Trump? More pressure on the Prime Minister, with MPs to decide if he should be investigated over claims that he misled them over Lord Mandelson. He signals to Sky News that he will order Labour MPs to back him in tomorrow's vote.
It is a stunt. We've got huge amounts of transparency going on already. And frankly, as Prime Minister and as a government, it is really important I focus on what matters to millions of people across the country.
Suspected gunman in Saturday's shooting in Washington is charged with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump as questions over the president's security continue. Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with Sarah Vine and Kevin Maguire, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including coverage of the King's US visit and the PM's predicament. Well, hello, a very good evening to you. Sarah and Kevin, welcome to you both as well. So we have seen the King and Queen at the White House meeting President Trump and the First Lady at the start of their state visit, for which the stakes could hardly be higher. So Sarah and Kevin, on to the garden party tonight. Yep. This all to celebrate 250 years of independence from Britain at a time of great schism, it seems, between our two nations.
Yes, I just see on the front page of the Express that they've had a cup of tea together.
They have indeed.
That's so exciting. I wonder what sort of tea it was. Lapsang Souchong?
It was an independence. The then colonies had to fight to take that independence, but there's a kind of war now. There's an economic war. There's a war in Iran, and maybe it'll all be nice and they'll pose for photographs. There'll all be smiles here, but I think it'll change the fundamentals. And once the royals have left, Trump will just be Trump.
I know. I look that tea service looks fantastic. Look, they've got little sandwiches and everything. Kevin, how can you not be in favour of this kind of thing?
How much does it cost?
Some lovely pictures there. After that, they went outside, actually, to see the newly installed beehive on the South Lawn, crafted in the shape of the White House and housing 2 new bee colonies, which their majesties have viewed, both very interested, we are told, in beekeeping. But this is much better for the King, is it not? It's a private get-together. The cameras are not in. It is not a dressing down or haranguing in the Oval Office that we've seen so many leaders endure.
And, you know, he can ask all the difficult questions he wants to ask, and it won't ever get out. Well, it might get out. But the point is, this is what the monarchy is for. It's this kind of soft power, you know, trying to sort of paper over the cracks, trying to make everybody feel a bit better about themselves. And I know, Kevin, you don't think it's going to work, and it probably won't work because Trump is so volatile and he's like a child and he flips from one moment to the next. But it's important that, you know, the King and Queen are representing Britain. We're the grown-ups in the room in this situation. They are the grown-ups in the room.
We have more than 1,000 years of monarchy behind us.
Yeah,
and
much broken line, descended from warlords. Yeah. Go on, sorry, but you know, just keep it in. You know, it's true perspective.
Tonight,
I'm sorry. Yeah, because I'm not joining in. I mean, it's just look. They'll all get along nicely, but it won't change those fundamentals. He's not going to drop the tariffs he's imposed on the UK. He's still going to get Trump with his Iran war, which has pushed up prices in the UK, including the aviation fuel on the flight that took Charles and Camilla over. It won't change the fact he was very contemptuous about British service personnel who died in Afghanistan. He's mocked the Royal Navy. He hates green renewable energy, which Charles is absolutely committed about. He doesn't give a fig for the environment, which Charles is committed to. So there we are. It all looks nice. And it's because of the Scottish mother of Trump, he has a respect for the royal family, but he doesn't show that respect for very long towards Britain, as we saw after September's visit to Windsor Castle.
So what of Charles's message then? He'll be speaking to a joint session of Congress. Let's hear from our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, who has more from the UK's ambassador's residence. Let's listen.
I think his team will be hoping the next 4 days in the US go as planned without any unplanned or embarrassing outbursts from Donald Trump. Look, today has felt very much like a low-key start to this state visit, with the welcome at the airport, tea at the White House, the beehives, and later coming here to the British ambassador's residence with garden tea party with some 600 guests. That's the easy day. Tomorrow, I think, is the bigger, much harder day. You've got this huge formal welcoming ceremony. You've then got the meeting between the president and the king, and then the king will deliver his address to both houses of Congress. And this will be such a carefully worded speech. It's coming at such a difficult time between the US and the UK relations. I think the government will be hoping, by combining a king with a president who loves the British family, it will help repair some of those very difficult recent relations. We've heard a little bit about what the king will be talking about tomorrow. He will say how we are living in times of challenge, but that we still have our shared values. He will say that he brings the friendship of the UK to the US, and say that while we haven't always agreed, we have always found ways to come together. He says that will say that the story of both the UK and the US is one of reconciliation and renewal that has led to, the king will say, one of the greatest alliances in human history. So pretty punchy words there, and I think definitely words written and designed to diplomatically flatter Donald Trump.
Well, that is the ambition for the king. Let's hear more from our US correspondent David Blevins on why the state visit is important to President Trump.
Well, in many ways, if there was an episode of The Crown crying out to be made, it is the one where royal protocol meets the political firebrand. That is Donald Trump, and it is easier, I suppose, to articulate British objectives, because it's not the job of the monarch to rebuild the bridge, but they will be hoping, of course, by exercising what's often described as soft power, the king will be able to persuade the current president of the United States to stop demolishing that relationship. There is already a personal relationship between the two men. Donald Trump says he likes King Charles. He respects him. He's even gone so far as to suggest the king would have deployed UK forces in support of their American allies in their war with Iran if it was up to him and not up to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Very far from reality, of course. But in terms of what Donald Trump wants out of this, well, think about what King Charles brings with him. All of the pageantry, pomp and circumstance that Trump relishes. It gives him a sense of occasion, a sense of standing in the world, and he is flattered by it, to put it quite frankly. So when you also reflect on how often he talks about America being first, being best, being biggest, you can absolutely expect him to roll out the red carpet over the next 4 days, but he'll be doing so against that tricky backdrop. Security heightened, security having been stepped up around the President and First Lady and around the King and Queen after that attempted assassination of Donald Trump at the Washington Hilton Hotel last Saturday night.
Yes, we'll keep an eye on all those. Oh, that was me at the end. Anyway, speaking to David a short time ago, but, you know, hats off to the King and the Queen, straight off a flight across the Atlantic, straight to work, straight
of
to
an
tea.
age.
Of an age.
Of an age.
Well, the King is 77.
And still undergoing treatment.
Exactly.
You know, you've got to hand it to him. He does work hard, takes it very seriously. I think if anyone can, he can. I think I have a lot of confidence in the King.
He's had a long apprenticeship for this.
Mm-hmm.
He's met all the presidents, I think, since Nixon, or his mother could go back to Harry Truman a lot further back. And he hasn't, well, they haven't flown economy, but nevertheless, it will be arduous because of the time differences and so on, and also their age, and the fact he is still having cancer treatment.
Yeah.
So that is impressive.
Yeah. And his energy is I think, very impressive, and his dedication to this role that he's...
And he'll know he can't slip up.
Yeah.
He'll have to be very careful what he says, because Trump can take offence very easily. I mean, butterflies have thicker, wings than Trump's skin.
Yes.
Well, we've seen the pictures of them having tea at the White House. Have we not?
Pretty.
We are still awaiting pictures of the garden party, some 600 guests, replete with more cake. I mean, there's only so much cake.
That looks like a painting, doesn't it? It's beautiful.
It does indeed. But before joining the guests at the garden party, Their Majesties have viewed a time capsule which was created to mark America's 250th anniversary celebrations this year. The capsule will be twinned with another, which was placed under the statue of George George Washington in Trafalgar Square in London last June to commence the UK-US-America 250 celebrations, and the King and the Queen have the opportunity to include a commemorative coin created by the Royal Mint for this occasion, and then the capsule will include a proclamation from His Majesty and essays written by local Washington schoolchildren. It'll then be placed under the Washington Monument on the capital city's National Mall later this year to one day be reopened on the occasion of America's, try and pronounce this properly, quincentennial anniversary. Is that 500 years?
That's 500 years, I think, yes.
So in another 250 years, they will open this commemorative coin and the messages from the
kids.
Did
you notice that that Trump is not wearing his usual obnoxious red tie?
He didn't. Yes, and I've seen it recently.
Rather elegant, kind of blue. Yeah.
I love the fact you're focused on tea and ties tonight.
Well, red is the Republican Party colour.
Yeah.
You know, the right is red and the left is blue, the Democrats. And it's sort of flipped in the...
And the guests at the we're obviously watching the pictures of the arrival at the White House, and the guests at the garden party will be from politics, science and sustainability to charities tackling domestic abuse, community organisations and the creative industries across the US. In fact, here are the stills from them. Sarah, you can commentate on these because I know you like these.
Nice hanky in the pocket, Sarah.
Yes, I don't know who those people are, but they look very happy and delighted to meet the Queen. She's doing her job very well.
Guy on the left looks a bit like Andrew.
Yes.
Honestly, seriously, you're so not helping.
Sorry.
I'm just, yes, I'm
nice
presuming...
wood panelling, though. Very impressive wood panelling they've got going on there. This is the embassy, is it?
This is the ambassador's residence.
Yes. Anderson will be crying in North London. It should have been me.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Missed out there. Oh, look, there's the beehive.
Oh, there you
like
are.
The White House. Here we have it.
Do you like that?
I think that is very classy. I won't have anyone say that it's not classy. It's extremely classy. Maybe they could sell them. Maybe Meghan Markle could do a line. She could do a sort of small diffusion line of white-shaped.
There are a lot of photographs here for the next Private Eye cover.
The initiative supports local pollinators and provides honey for state dinners, gifts and local food kitchens. Mrs Trump recently unveiled the hive, which adds 2 new colonies to the existing 2, aiming to increase honey production. Brilliant. What's not to love about this?
Well, bees and pollination is a kind of serious, crucial issue, but I can't believe Donald Trump... he probably wants to concrete it over.
They're in there,
Have they been all... But I mean, what if one escaped and accidentally stung someone? I mean...
These are questions I cannot answer.
Bees are normally quite passive unless you go...
The King and Queen, both avid supporters of beekeeping and sustainability, Kevin, I throw that at you, will view the new artisan-crafted White House replica. There you go.
Yeah. No, artisanal, artisan.
Exactly.
It's brilliant. Yeah. And there's tea as well. I mean, what more could you want?
Yeah.
But I mean, we're laughing. But this is what they do. They do these walkabouts. They meet and greet. They say kind words. It's the soft power, and lots of people love it, and it works. Despite what you say, Kevin, I think it will. I think it will be emollient for the president. Maybe he'll get a knighthood
for 3 days.
For 3 days.
Oh God, the honorary knighthood. Yes, offer him there. Yes. So Starmer hasn't done that yet, has he?
See, that's the ace up the sleeve, isn't there?
Yeah, but I think the Starmer's now fed up with Trump, and I think. I would guarantee he was out of number 10 by the end of the week.
OK.
Well, there's a war in Iran.
Maybe it won't happen then.
No.
You never know. But, obviously the substantive issue of security has been much discussed, as you know, and apparently they talked through the night and... agreed it could still go ahead as we see.
Well, the King has always been quite sanguine about that sort of thing. Didn't he once say, many years ago when he was the Prince, that, if a bullet had his name on it, and there wasn't much he could do about it. So he does. I don't think he allows those concerns to get in the way of his behaviour.
I think it's a serious and genuine issue, but it's probably safer to go now because security will be even tighter after what happened at the correspondence dinner.
Yes, absolutely. And certainly the new ambassador, Sir Christian Turner, who replaced Lord Peter Mandelson, said all appropriate security measures were in place for the state visit and so on. So we will no doubt get more pictures from inside that garden party. And we'll also be talking about the court appearance of the man accused of trying to attack President Trump in just a moment. First of all, should we discuss the Prime Minister? If he had been hoping that he had survived the worst of the Mandelson affair, he might be thinking again tonight. That is because the Commons Speaker has agreed to a Tory request for a vote tomorrow on whether the PM should face an inquiry by the Privileges Committee into claims that he misled Parliament. Well, Sky's Cathy Newman has been speaking to Sir Keir Starmer as she launched her new show this evening and began by asking him if he would order Labour MPs to back him tomorrow.
You're so confident that your conduct is so very different to Boris Johnson. Why not just let the Privileges Committee investigate and you know you'll be proven right? Why are you whipping your MPs to vote against this call for an investigation?
Well, because it's a stunt.
You are whipping your MPs against it.
But it is a stunt. We've got huge amounts of transparency going on already. And frankly, as Prime Minister and as a government, it is really important I focus on what matters to millions of people across the country. I know what they're feeling. They're feeling worried about what's happening in the Middle East. They don't like to see the damage that has already been caused. And deep down, I think, in their stomach, they feel this could impact me. My bills might go up. And they're looking to me and the government to say, what are you doing to manage that and make sure that the impact on our country is limited?
Well, let's talk about the bigger picture, US-UK relations and Iran, as you've rightly brought up. I mean, you appointed Lord Mandelson to charm Donald Trump, and now obviously the King this week has got to play nice with him. Let's just look at some of the things that Trump has said just in the last 6 weeks alone. He's repeatedly slagged you off. He's dismissed UK aircraft carriers as toys. He's threatened new tariffs. He's questioned Britain's sovereignty over the Falklands Islands. Is it time to stop pretending this man is an ally?
Well, I think it's important, just as you went through that list, to remind ourselves what that's all about. I took a very clear decision at the outbreak of the conflict in Iran that the UK would not be dragged into the conflict.
So you're chairing this crisis cabinet committee tomorrow. I wondered if you could just level with the British public. You know, are you worried about fuel and food shortages? Is that why you're chairing that committee?
There is going to be an impact on the UK. There already is. And I think it's really important I level with the public that we are doing everything we can to get the Strait of Hormuz open, because obviously that is vital in terms of minimising the impact. But I don't want anybody to think that once the strait is open, that that's the end of the damage. It'll go on longer than that. And that's why we've got almost daily meetings of ministers and officials looking at how we manage the impact. At the moment, we're confident about supply. We have reopened a CO2 plant in the northeast. Airlines are telling us that they've got enough jet fuel at the moment.
But when you say at the moment, for how long?
Well, we monitor this all of the time, and they have told us so far that they've got the supplies that they need.
But summer holidays could be in jeopardy.
Well, that's why we manage it. I think what we'll see how long the conflict goes on. I can see that if there's more impact, people might change their habits, where they go on holiday this year, what they're buying in the supermarket, that sort of thing.
So you are, I mean, really your message to the public is don't panic, but actually there may be some shortages of food and fuel.
Don't panic, but we chose not to get involved in this war. That was the right thing to do, but we must protect the British people from the impact of it.
Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, has joined us now. Lots ahead. Prime Minister might be nervously watching some of it tomorrow, John.
Yes, he will. He could face a double whammy tomorrow because, of course, there is the committee meeting in the morning where Sir Philip Barton, he's the former top Mandarin in the Foreign Office, preceded Ollie Robbins. He was opposed to the Mandelson appointment. He's giving evidence, 9 a.m, followed at 11 by Morgan McSweeney, Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff, he of the mysterious disappearing mobile phone, which he says was stolen. Tories say the story's fishy and beggars belief. Then, of course, you've got the debate in the House of Commons, where all sorts of accusations will be flung at the Prime Minister, led by Kemi Badenoch. I mean, she said in the Commons the other day, I'm not allowed to accuse the Prime Minister of lying, but she'll do everything she can, bar that, of course. And, of course, the Lib Dems and other smaller opposition parties are piling in on this bid to get the Privileges Committee to look into Sir Keir Starmer. What will some of the rebels on the back benches say? An interesting fact I noticed today. The Privileges Committee, first of all, it's chaired by Alberto Costa, a Tory MP who turned against Johnson, when was it, 5 years ago? 4 years ago. But also, one of the Labour MPs is Paula Barker, who has been absolutely savage about the Mandelson appointment. We were supposed to raise standards. Appointing Peter Mandelson was an absolute betrayal of that, putting party before the country. And she said it's absolutely disgusting, quite frankly. So she's no friend of the Prime Minister.
We heard Sir Keir Starmer say this is a political stunt. There's plenty of stuff coming out in the open, you know, hundreds, thousands more documents as part of the humble address. But, you know, he's having done to him what he did to Boris Johnson, is the point, isn't it?
Yeah, he can win the vote tomorrow, but I think he'll lose the war on this one because his judgment was deeply flawed in appointing Mandelson. Whether he lied or not,
which he's already said, to be fair,
is a separate issue. Yes, but you say it doesn't disappear because it keeps coming back. And you're right, all the documents are yet to come. Whether the Intelligence and Security Committee of Trustees, peers and MPs has been going through them to protect national security, but there'll be a lot that's just embarrassing for the Prime Minister. And tomorrow, I'm kind of looking to see Morgan McSweeney question, but Philip Barton, the former Permanent Secretary at the Foreign Office, could be potentially most deadly if he says he was put under a lot of pressure to approve Peter Mandelson.
Tonight, a second Mandarin, a man called Ian Collard, who Yvette Cooper has blocked from appearing before the committee, submitted written evidence in which he said that, yes, there was pressure from Downing Street to approve the appointment due to regular contact from Number 10, he said. And he said he felt pressure to deliver a rapid outcome during the vetting of Mandelson.
Yes, and fascinating to hear Morgan McSweeney, the man who, you know, is thought to have actually defeated Corbynism, put Sir Keir Starmer in post and thought about him as a candidate for the Labour leader. Sir Keir told Cathy Newman tonight that actually he still, you know, has meetings with Morgan McSweeney. You wonder if he's running the ship from the sidelines.
Well,
who knows?
He's a Malcolm Tucker figure, isn't he, Morgan McSweeney? You sort of wonder how much.
He claims he doesn't swear, though.
Oh,
yes.
He denied that claim that he said just approve it.
And Keir Starmer said tonight as well, that does not sound like him.
Right. Okay.
So who said that, and if that quote was correct, we don't know. But
there are some in Labour who think Morgan McSweeney was more the puppet master. He was an ally of Peter Mandelson, dealt with him a lot in the run-up to Labour's election. One reshuffle Mandelson is said to have been heavily involved in. He pushed him forward, Mandelson forward. Starmer didn't really know him. Different era. Mandelson had no respect for Starmer, and he gets the job. And that's McSweeney.
Jobs for boys.
Yeah, but it was a boys' club, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. There is a line. I wonder if we're doing it yet. Are we about? We are. OK, right. Which is the government will impose some form of age or functionality restrictions on social media for children under 16, regardless of the outcome of the consultation that they've been running. That is according to the Education Minister, Olivia Bailey, telling the House of Commons. So
this is a climb down forced on the government by the ping-pong battle over that Children's and Wellbeing Bill, which has been back and forth. A Tory peer, Lord Nash, has been battling to get this ban, which Kemi Badenoch wants, on under 16s. It's clearly a desperate move to try and get the legislation through this week.
Is this a sort of a promise in the future type job?
Well, they've moved because up to now, Keir Starmer, when this has been raised at Prime Minister's questions, said, yes, we're going to do it, but after the consultation. What you've just described is different. And they're obviously saying they're going to go ahead with it. Let's see what the Lords do, whether the Lords send it back again or whether they say, OK, fine, we'll stop our opposition.
We have the Parliament's up in the middle of the week, ahead of the state opening in about a fortnight, I think it is.
13th of May.
And so legislation falls if it isn't passed, so they're desperate for it. But some type of intervention, it may not be a ban, it could be timeouts, it could be curfews, it could be lots of other things, which Liz Kendall, the tech secretary, has spoken about. But they've moved, there's no question they're
Well, they've had to,
under pressure.
because the Lords were absolutely determined. They kept passing, about 3 or 4 times, they passed this amendment for a total ban on under-16s, and they had to do something.
Yeah, and in one word, for or against some form of age restrictions for...
Absolutely, 100% for.
OK, interesting. Yes, I don't know what your thoughts
are. By the way, I think the general public are as well. There have been some polling that shows
polls
that
suggest they are.
People would really like that.
But most under-16s in Australia, where there is a ban, say they're still using it.
OK. We'll follow that story, certainly. Coming up next, though, also an assassination charge for the man suspected of trying to kill Donald Trump over the weekend. There could be more charges on the way. We'll get the latest from court.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back.
Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on.
I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist...
Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off.
And make a statement.
What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs?
He's coming out!
What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan. I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming. It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Now back to Washington, where the man suspected of trying to storm the White House correspondents' dinner with guns and knives on Saturday night has been charged with attempting to assassinate Donald Trump. But questions remain about Cole Allen's alleged actions and how security at the event came to be tested. Our US correspondent James Matthews was in court and sent us this update.
Well, we saw him, Cole Thomas Allen, for the first time since those images from Saturday night, the grainy video, that still picture of him on the floor on his chest, handcuffed. He walked into court, a very tall man. He was surrounded by marshals. He's well over 6 foot, in a blue prison jumpsuit, short-sleeved. Sat down, he was slouched, quite attentive, looked tired to me. You know, he's got a goatee beard, short hair, not smiling. We saw the mugshot, he had a smile on his face. Not here. He looked around the packed public benches, didn't fix anyone with his stare necessarily, but paid attention, was very polite to the judge. It was all, yes, Your Honour, no, Your Honour, yes, sir, no, sir. We learned that he had not been speaking to investigators so far. He was sticking to that right to remain silent. In terms of the charges, there are 3 of them, the principal one being what we learned today, count 1, an attempt to assassinate the President of the United States. He was told by the judge the maximum sentence would be, or could be, life plus $250,000 fine. He acknowledged that with a brief nod of his head. We learned details of the weapons said to have been involved, a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, 38 caliber semi-automatic pistol, 3 knives, and what was described as dangerous paraphernalia. So, you know, this was an arraignment hearing, Anna. There was no plea today. That will be for another court proceeding. But the evidence in this case clearly is still being built from those weapons, from a search of his house, and also from this document that he is said to have written, something like 1,000 words, where he spoke about targeting the Trump administration, prioritising them, in his words, from the highest ranking to the lowest.
James Matthews, who was both in court and at the dinner, in fact, on Saturday, reporting for us overnight, the extraordinary scenes there. I know there are further discussions about security this week in Washington. Clearly, many people have a lot to look into. But should this be seen as a success, do you think, of the system? Or the fact that someone could stay in the same hotel and actually have a weapon on them, multiple weapons on them, as we've heard.
Yes, well, he also carried all the weapons all the way across America, didn't he, on the train? So he just got on the train with his arsenal. And of course, now if you go travel by train in America, you'll be checked every 20 seconds. But I don't think he has a record, does he? So presumably there would be no reason for him to flag anything. He was staying in the same hotel. I mean, we don't really know anything about him, apart from the fact that he used to be a teacher, probably a good teacher by all accounts. So
he did tutoring. And
so maybe he's just sort of had a moment of madness. I mean,
there are very many questions, like who did the shooting? Now, today, Todd Blanche said, in fact, actually, they believe that law enforcement fired 5 of the shots that were heard. Most people in the room heard 5 shots, but also suggested he had, let off his shotgun. But they're still doing studies on the ballistics. So all of that will be interesting, whether he didn't even get a shot off, you see.
No, absolutely. But it's kind of a success and a failure. The success is he didn't get near the president, but the failure is he was in the hotel. You go back to 1984 in Britain and Brighton and the IRA bomb. The bomber had checked into the hotel some weeks before and put a bomb behind a bath panel, which went off and almost killed the then Prime Minister. Did kill, I think it was 4 people, including a Conservative MP and seriously wounded, disabled Norman Tebbett's wife. But for the King and Queen's visit, security would have been tightened. So for them, in one way, it's a blessing in disguise, because they will never be safer, I think now. But the problem in the States is it's bitterly divided. Trump is part of that problem, and it is armed.
Yes, but sorry.
I was just going to say, why don't we look at the papers while we discuss this now? We'll have a look at all of them first of all, and then we'll carry on our discussion. So let's take a look at the front pages, shall we, of tomorrow's newspapers. And the King and Queen's trip to the White House is on the front page of the Sun. As you can see, the headline, United Kingdom. The Eye says King Charles will put fixing the special relationship at the forefront of his visit to the United States, telling Congress to stick with Europe. There's the Daily Mirror as well, Kevin's paper, saying the King will fulfil the role of peace envoy, calling on the two nations to come together. The Star labels His Majesty as the King of Steel as the US Secret Service steps up security following the dramatic shooting over the weekend. Back at home, The Guardian focusing on the Prime Minister's call for unity ahead of a critical Commons vote on his handling of the Peter Mandelson vetting scandal. The Daily Mail says Sir Keir will attempt to save his own skin by ordering his backbenchers to vote against the ethics inquiry. The Telegraph features comments from the Prime Minister, which labelled tomorrow's vote as a political stunt. The Times warns Sir Keir Starmer's career could meet the same end as Boris Johnson if he is referred to what they're calling the Sleaze Committee. Leading the front page of the Financial Times is the Chinese government blocking Meta's multi-billion-dollar acquisition of AI software Manus. The Metro reports on the Iranian embassy in the UK, who have released a chilling message calling for Iranians to become martyrs. So let's delve inside the papers. In fact, Sarah, inside the Times, careful strides along the red carpet and across diplomatic minefield, they say, as we look at a beautiful green carpet.
Well, it's a picture of absolute harmony, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, everything is well coordinated. Everything matches, lovely shades of green. The Queen looks very nice on that stripy green sofa. She's sort of very blended in. So, you know, this is what they're trying to project. They're trying to project a kind of, you know, serenity, and that's what they're doing. So, you know, despite Kevin's cynicism, I think it's going as well as it could be expected to go.
I'm impressed the Times has that picture in its, you know, it's I think it's the first edition. That's pretty good production values getting it in. But the minefield includes Jeffrey Epstein's victims, as the Times points out, beneath that picture, which of course is not at all posed, it's just perfectly natural, that the victims are mocking Tea Party stunts because they've been locked out, and presumably the King, or the palace says the King won't meet them because of the legal process here in UK and doesn't want to jeopardise any inquiries into his arrested...
Which is a fair reason, to be fair, don't you think?
No, because I don't believe it. I think the reason he doesn't want to be overshadowed, the long shadow of his brother, Andrew, casting all the way across. And of course, Trump doesn't want it either because he and Melania were pictured often with Jeffrey Epstein.
So this is, they had tea and then they went outside, and on the South Lawn they looked at the beehives, and this is the newest hive, which is in the shape of a White House, which, I mean, Sarah, you're a great fan of.
Charming, I think it's delightful, absolutely delightful. But the main thing, the thing about that they don't...
Do you think they should have a Buckingham Palace one?
I think that's a great idea.
And a Windsor Castle one.
Clarence House, probably.
And all these other properties. I mean, there's going to be a lot of work for people doing beehives. He's got a lot of places.
I think it's a great merch idea. Great merch. But I do think the main thing, I mean, what they don't want is scenes with Epstein's victims shouting and screaming at the King. So there's no way that's going to happen.
You could have organised a private meeting with victims and survivors.
Yes, potentially, but maybe they will do further, or maybe they'll discuss it and maybe they'll do it further down the line.
But our correspondents point out that most of this visit will be entirely in a security bubble, effectively. You've got the White House now, you've got the ambassador's residence, you've got Congress tomorrow, in which the message will clearly be unity. And as we saw from other newspapers, you know, don't forget Europe and...
So the shooter, you know, he was staying at the hotel. I mean, you can't just check into the White House. You can't just check into the ambassador's residence. So it's a different environment, much more jeopardy there, I think.
But if you can get 600 people in for cucumber sandwiches without the crusts, which they're doing today, I'm sure you could have representatives of the Epstein victims going through airport-style security.
Yeah. We have got a lot of other newspapers to go. Should we try and fit Starmer in before? Which actually is the Daily Express we've chosen. The Prime Minister is putting welfare ahead of UK national security. Does that mean that is now the budget analysis of how you fund, you know, the Ministry of Defence versus welfare?
It seems to be the Express is certain it's going to take 13 years to deliver a pledge to boost the reserve armed forces. There must be a programme. I don't know the detail of that. I suppose what bombs not benefits is the headline you occasionally see, but of course, I would have thought actually the age profile of Express readers, a lot of them will be on benefits, although state pensions, you do pay 35 years worth of national insurance to qualify for the full state pension.
OK.
Yeah, I mean, this debate about benefits versus defence spending is I think it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because there is a sense that we need to spend more on defence and that the money that we do spend on defence needs to be better spent. There's a lot of wastage that happens, and we've got a lot of retired generals endlessly saying that there just isn't enough, and that the whole system is not really fit for purpose, and they just don't have the resources. I think at the same time there's also a kind of a recruitment problem in the armed forces because the government is pursuing the Northern Ireland veterans, or is pretending, or is talking about pursuing them. So there are a lot of people who might be thinking about going into the armed forces or might already be in the armed forces are thinking, well, I'm not sure I want to do that.
I think recruitment is paying conditions.
No, but there is
if you're in the lower ranks, the pay isn't particularly well, and a lot is expected of you, and it would cost a fair bit to boost salaries to hit recruitment
Kevin,
targets.
It is the case, isn't it, that there is this attempt to try and revisit actions of soldiers.
That's because immunity was ruled unlawful in court.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's difficult. If you're trying to encourage people to join the armed forces,
I'm not sure that's a factor.
It's very difficult, especially what happened after Iraq.
Yeah,
with all of that lawfare there, and all of that prosecution of veterans in Iraq turned out to be.
You can get more money without risking your legs blown off. I mean, that's it.
OK. We're going to take a break now. Lots more to discuss. Back in a moment. Wild.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, delving inside more newspapers, double-page spread in the world section of the Times. Now we've got the pictures of this as well, which is President Putin meeting the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. I mean, Putin trying to keep what remaining allies he has, because he's lost a lot, has he not?
He has. Syria, for instance, is gone. China's an ally, but as far as we know, hasn't supplied any weapons for his war in Ukraine. Of course, he must be worried about receiving drones from Iran, which has been using in Ukraine, because Iran is using them itself now.
Absolutely. And in fact, the whole paper says you never tire of the thrill of hitting a Russian drone, which is reporting from Ukraine, with more extraordinary pictures of drones flying across. But, you know, Putin praised the courage and heroism with which the Iranian people were fighting for their independence. Well, it's not the Iranian people, you know, that's the Iranian mullahs, the IRGC, and, you know, people like Araghchi and what's left of the government. The Iranian people were begging for change. Sarah.
They were desperate, weren't they? It's absolutely tragic that they're obviously not going to get it. I mean, the regime is hanging people at the rate of 10 or 15 a day, and they're all young, and it's heartbreaking.
As far as we can tell from the reporting coming outside, they want the regime gone, but they don't want to be bombed by the US and Israel.
Just as we wait to hear Morgan McSweeney talk about his stolen telephone, The Times is reporting that mobile phone thefts have fallen because drones are being used to catch thieves. They're talking about drones again.
Yeah, there's been a 20,000 fall by 21% in London, the Met using drones. That's still 67,064 phone theft offences in the year ending April 26. But if you divide that, it's about 180 a day, too many, but that is in a city of 9 million. But it shows you the police, if they crack down on a crime, can get results, but they need the resources to do so.
Now, this is one we have learnt for Sarah. Because we are finding out from the eye that Neanderthals were probably just as smart as humans. So far from being outsmarted and driven into extinction, Neanderthals were just as brainy as modern-day humans, according to a new report.
Well, I was once given one of those 23andMe things. I'm sure other genetic testings are available, and it said that I had more than usual Neanderthal DNA. I wasn't quite sure how to take it.
That's a very courageous admission.
What proportion Neanderthal?
I can't remember. It just said you have more than the sort of normal. I was slightly offended. I don't have very hairy toes.
You don't need to be offended anymore.
Well, no, apparently not. No, but I'm not sure. Maybe that's just put around by a lot of people who have done this test, and they've said that they've got a bit more Neanderthal than they expected of them. So you never know.
You can get a badge. I'm a Neanderthal and proud.
Exactly.
Neanderthal and out.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I've got quite long arms for someone of my size, I'm told. So maybe that's.
Can you walk like that?
I could probably try. Give it.
You should.
I'll cut that out.
Photocopy that and put it in your.
I will. Yes.
In the meantime, we know this one. Stolen chips really do taste better.
Oh yes,
it's absolutely true. There's been.
They also don't have any calories.
Oh, great.
And they're free, of course. This would be northern
it's
about
like anything,
it. But
anything you eat on an aeroplane has no calories.
Why?
Because it's the I don't know, really. I haven't read it. Sorry. If I'm brutally honest, I'm sorry about that.
Are you one of those people? Because I always order my own chips, right? And then everyone eats my chips, and it really annoys me. And I'm like, can you not just? Because some people just can't order chips.
You can order 2 portions from now on.
But then I look like I'm really greedy, like I might be a Neanderthal.
Yeah. And it would cost more. I suspect it's the excitement of taking them, isn't it? That's what it is. Reaching over and taking somebody's chip.